Hi there, I'm Caleb Fletcher. I'm 16 years old, and this incident occurred around 8 to 9 months ago on the 24th of August, which happened to be a Saturday. School had been in session for about 2 weeks, and in order to unwind a bit, I suggested to my friends, whom I'll refer to as Griffin and Broly, that we play Fortnite. My mom and sister were out shopping. My dad was working, and I found myself feeling bored. It was approximately 8 o'clock p.m. when we finally started playing, as I had taken the time to prepare some pizza rolls beforehand. Unfortunately, I ended up burning the entire batch. After a few rounds, I could sense that my friends were growing weary of losing, so they decided to call it quits. After just an hour, I planned on just lying down with my phone and going to bed. It was until I heard my 2 dogs barking outside. It's not unusual for them to bark, given how people typically walk on the side of the road, but I still looked anyway, just to make sure I didn't see anybody. However, seconds after looking out the window, I heard our garage door open and shut. That usually means my dad is home from work, but I didn't see his van outside. He had texted me earlier, telling me that he would be working late tonight. I decided to venture downstairs into the dining room, hoping for a different perspective. Peering out the window, I noticed that our driveway was completely deserted. Not a soul or vehicle in sight. Feeling a bit uneasy, I hesitated to investigate further and quickly retreated back to the safety of my bedroom. I reached out to my family group chat, seeking reassurance. I informed my mom about the peculiar garage door situation, and she advised me to switch off the lights, secure my bedroom, and remain there until she returned. Following her instructions, I anxiously waited. After about 15 minutes, I thought I heard the faint sound of our wooden floor downstairs creaking, as if someone were attempting to move stealthily. Lacking any means of defense, I nervously grasped my microphone's clip. I cautiously extended the boom arm from my desk and silently opened the door. I stepped out onto our upstairs balcony, glancing over the edge in an attempt to catch any signs of hidden figures or peculiar activity. In a moment of foolishness, I called out, asking if anyone was there, fully aware that no response would come. Despite my initial sense of security, my heart skipped a beat as I caught sight of a towering figure lurking beneath the balcony. Panic surged through me, propelling me to seek refuge in the nearest room with a door, my compact bathroom. I suddenly became aware of the presence of someone in our house. The sound of heavy and hurried footsteps echoed up the stairs, causing me to panic. Without thinking, I locked myself in the bathroom, realizing too late that I had left my phone in the adjacent bedroom. After gathering my courage, I made a dash for my bedroom and locked the door behind me. It was then that I noticed my sister's room, directly across from mine, with its door wide open. I couldn't help but suspect that the intruder had been in there. With my bedroom door secured, I quickly retrieved my phone and dialed 911. Just before making the call, I noticed that the hidden storage compartment in my wall was slightly ajar. Through the narrow opening, I saw a chilling dark brown eye staring back at me, sending shivers down my spine. The sheer terror I experienced in that moment is something that will haunt me forever. I sprinted down the stairs and bolted out my front door. As I sprinted up the hill towards my neighbor's house, my heart raced with fear. My neighbor, a police officer, quickly alerted his colleagues while I stayed with his wife. He bravely went down to investigate, and I anxiously shared the exact location where the intruder was hiding in my bedroom. Minutes later, I hurried back down the hill to see if the intruder had been apprehended. When I entered the house, a sense of relief washed over me as I witnessed my neighbor, with his wife's support, subduing a tall, thin man with a gray beard and a tattered black coat. The intruder was being handcuffed and forced onto the floor. This terrifying incident led to new security measures being implemented around our house, and I am no longer allowed to be home alone. My family was immensely grateful that I emerged unharmed, and we all recognized the immense courage displayed by our neighbor. This harrowing experience is one that I wouldn't wish upon anyone, not even my worst enemy. This incident occurred a few months ago while I was driving for DoorDash. That night, I was only doing a couple of orders since it was already late. I had picked up a small order around 1 o'clock a.m. as part of my side gig, driving for Dash. As I arrived at the business building across town, I noticed something unusual. The parking lot was completely empty, devoid of any cars. Surprisingly, there didn't seem to be a parking lot behind the building either. Ignoring the eerie atmosphere, I parked near the front and grabbed the food. The building itself appeared to be a small office, only 2 stories tall and not very wide. Strangely, all the lights in the windows were off, except for a single light shining from behind the front door. I approached the door and consulted the app, which provided detailed instructions for dropping off the package. It instructed me to enter the main hallway and leave the bag outside room 232. As I peered through the door, I observed a dimly lit hallway with numerous closed doors on both sides. This delivery method was unfamiliar to me, as I had only done deliveries at hotels before. I cautiously tested the door, pushing on it gently. To my surprise, it was unlocked. With a sense of trepidation, I stepped inside, fully anticipating the sounds of bustling activity, the echoes of people working, moving around, and engaged in conversation. However, I couldn't hear anything. There was complete silence in the entire building, except for the faint buzzing of the overhead lights as I walked past the first few doors. These doors were labeled with numbers in the 100s, such as 102 and 106. The room indicated in the instructions was located on the 200th floor, suggesting it was situated in the middle of the hallway on the 2nd floor. I noticed a doorway leading to the staircase, which was propped open by a wedge door stopper on the floor. However, the lights were not on. As I cautiously stepped into the room and approached the staircase, I glanced upwards. The entire stairwell was enveloped in darkness, not a single ray of light emanating from the room above where I was supposed to deliver the item. A sense of eerie silence descended upon me, sending a shiver down my spine. I was always one to follow instructions diligently in order to receive positive feedback. However, this particular situation gave me an uneasy feeling. I cautiously exited the stairwell and returned to the hallway. Just as I did, the door directly across from me swung open, revealing a pitch-black room. A man suddenly appeared from behind the door. He was dressed in casual clothes, completely different from what you would expect from an office worker. Standing in front of me, he pointed towards the stairwell without saying a word. I acknowledged his direction, but hesitated to move. The man stared at me with a hint of anger in his eyes, as if he was trying to control his emotions. After a tense moment, I dropped my bag and swiftly made my way toward the exit. Surprisingly, the man didn't follow me, but I could hear his footsteps echoing as he ascended the stairs. I quickly got into my car and drove away, leaving the building behind. I was completely unaware of the situation and unsure if I was just being overly concerned. As a result, I decided not to contact the police the next day. However, to my surprise, the police reached out to me. It turns out that the office had reported a break-in, and upon reviewing the CCTV footage, they discovered my car and license plate linked to the incident. They requested my presence for questioning, hoping I could provide them with any relevant information. I had very little to offer, but to my surprise, 3 individuals managed to infiltrate my home. One of them was downstairs, and I caught a glimpse of them. However, the security cameras revealed that the other 2 are lurking at the top of the stairs, seemingly anticipating my ascent. It's quite unsettling that multiple delivery orders were placed at that office on the same night. Interestingly, all the other drivers had the sense to leave the orders outside by the front door. What might have transpired on the 2nd floor of that office remains a mystery. Hopefully, the police can locate the 3 men before anyone becomes a target. And I'm a man at a mid-sized grocery store, working 10-hour shifts mostly overnights. Unfortunately, our store was facing some staff issues, leaving every department understaffed and overworked. The overnight shift was no exception to this challenging situation. I had one guy who would assist me 5 nights a week, but that was the extent of our help. On this particular day, it happened to be his day off, so I was left to work alone. I arrived at 10 o'clock, and by 10:15, after completing some office tasks, I began the arduous process of unpacking and stocking numerous boxes in the aisles. Despite lacking any assistance that night, I pushed myself to work diligently and swiftly. I didn't even take a break, determined to finish everything on my own. However, in the midst of my focused efforts, a tapping sound suddenly reverberated throughout the store. I paused and listened attentively, only to hear it repeat again. It resembled the sound of someone tapping on a window at the front of the store. I glanced at my watch, realizing for the first time since I began working that it was 2 a.m. The passage of time seemed to have slipped away unnoticed, leaving me in a perplexing situation. As I made my way down the aisle, I noticed a figure lurking outside the store, leaning against the window and peering inside. His gaze locked onto me as I approached, his expression devoid of any warmth or friendliness. Curiosity getting the better of me, I inquired about his intentions. The man, who appeared to be down on his luck, demanded that I open the door, his face remaining stoic and unyielding. Politely, I informed him that we were closed and he couldn't be here. With that, I turned to leave, only to be startled by the sudden forceful pounding on the window, replacing the gentle tapping from before. I glanced back at him, and his face was twisted with anger as he pounded his fist against the glass. I couldn't help but think this guy was completely unhinged. In an attempt to defuse the situation, I warned him that I would call the police if he didn't leave. As I reached for my phone to prove I meant business, he finally backed away from the window. Even as he walked off into the parking lot, his angry expression remained etched on his face. Familiar with the occasional odd customer, I shrugged off the encounter and refocused on my work. With only a small stack of boxes stocked, I had to concentrate on completing my tasks. About 15 minutes later, a sudden noise reverberated through the store, resembling the sound of metal snapping or scraping. I immediately abandoned my task and sprinted towards the front. There was an eerie absence of people at the windows, so I cautiously approached the entrance door. It was one of those revolving glass doors, secured by a bolt lock at the top to prevent it from opening after closing time. To my horror, I discovered that the bolt was not just unlocked, but completely vanished. I pressed my hand against the door, and it swung open effortlessly, granting access to anyone. Panic washed over me as I realized the implications of this discovery. Without hesitation, I knew I had to contact the police immediately. I turned around to head towards the front office, only to come face to face with the same guy from earlier. His enraged expression sent chills down my spine. I wasted no time and sprinted out of the building through the revolving door. I could hear his footsteps close behind me as I dashed into the parking lot. Suddenly, an old van came speeding towards me, narrowly missing me. I kept running until I reached my car. As I hurriedly got inside, I noticed that the guy had stopped chasing me, and the van was now speeding away from the parking lot. I immediately contacted the authorities and spent the following hours recounting the terrifying incident. Unfortunately, it wasn't until the following day that we obtained security footage of the intruder forcefully entering. Although the image quality was less than ideal, it was evident that their intentions were to lure me into their van. The motive behind their actions remains unknown. I can't help but feel grateful for my quick thinking, as it likely saved me from a much darker fate.